And a real lady. There aren't many ladies left, are there? She was one.
Jill was loved, I think, by the viewers more than almost anybody I know. She got an extraordinary response wherever she went. She was a star, but without being a star, if you know what I mean. She was a very natural person.
And at long last, her personal life was happy. After a number of well-documented broken romances, she was delighted to announce her engagement in February. Jill Dando had been chosen to present the BBC's worldwide Millennium coverage. Now TV insiders and TV viewers mourn the woman seen as one of the faces of the BBC. Katie Derham, ITN.
The police have said it's too early to talk about what the motive for the murder might have been, but as we've heard, one possibility is that Miss Dando may have been the victim of a stalker. There's likely to be one line of inquiry. As Harold Jones reports, celebrity can make people in the public eye potential targets.
Television presenter Beverly Ashworth was once the victim of a malicious campaign of harassment. She was lucky the man was caught, but day to day she had to exercise extra care.
I was working here at Granada Television at the time, so I made them aware of what was going on, so they took some precautions for me, if you like. You know, I was never walked to my car alone, that sort of thing.
It's not known if Jill Dando's murderer was a stalker, and indeed psychologists say it is extremely rare for stalkers to murder. What might drive a stalker to kill?
The difference between ordinary stalking, which is just being a nuisance, and killing is very difficult to know. The only thing that really comes to mind is that that person has such a store of uncontrollable and uncontrolled aggression that given certain circumstances, it might come out in terms of murder.
This man, Robert Dewey Hoskins, threatened to murder Madonna. Hoskins is now serving 10 years in an American jail. Madonna now has round-the-clock personal security, expensive but effective.
John Lennon was killed last night.
The murder of a celebrity is always shocking, the motive for their killing sometimes obscure. John Lennon was shot dead in New York City by Mark Chapman, but what really triggered Chapman's anger has never clearly been established. Even after a killer is caught and convicted, exactly why he murdered might never be clear. Harold Jones, ITN.
The day's other news, the Prime Minister said again today there had been no compromise on NATO's demands on President Milosevic and said the air war will be intensified. The deployment of American Apache helicopters in Albania was completed today. With the latest developments, here's ITN's Robert Moore.
NATO has called the military encirclement of Yugoslavia the Ring of Steel. Today, it was further strengthened with the arrival in Albania of the final elements of the Apache helicopter gunship force. There is no indication of when the Apaches will first engage Serb field forces, but NATO leaders, including the Prime Minister in the Commons today, are vowing to continue the bombing, and Mr. Blair highlighted the continuing atrocities.
There has been organised, systematic rape of women, usually in front of husbands and children. Young men have been forced to dig graves, then shot. Whole villages have been razed to the ground. Some of the stories of the cruelty and barbarity practiced by Serb militia are evil beyond belief. These acts remain the essential justification for NATO's actions.
NATO released further cockpit video of warplanes hitting Serb targets in Kosovo. But despite Western hopes, there is no clear evidence the resolve of President Milosevic is weakening.
Every day when he wakes up, as you know, he does see, or at least I hope he sees, I hope he gets the news that overnight his military forces have been depleted by another percentage point, and that this is only going in one direction, it's going down.
And 1 month into the bombing, and with the issue of ground troops still too sensitive to be decided on by NATO leaders, the aerial bombardment will certainly continue. The NATO summit in Washington did bring about a consensus that the air war must now be intensified. But on other key questions, such as the oil embargo, the use of ground troops, and the circumstances surrounding any invasion, on those issues, there is the potential for far greater confusion. Robert Moore, ITN, at the Ministry of Defence.
A key bridge in Yugoslavia's second largest city was destroyed last night in NATO's continuing air attacks. It was the last road or rail crossing over the river Danube in Novi Sad. Allied commanders said it had been targeted to stop Serb troops being moved south to Kosovo. From Belgrade, here's ITN's Julian Mannion, who is operating under Serbian restrictions.
For NATO, this was unfinished business. The last bridge across the Danube in Serbia's second city, Novi Sad, had resisted repeated direct hits. But last night it collapsed under another bombardment. The result was to leave part of the Yugoslav army virtually cut off in the northern section of the country, and to reduce residents of Novi Sad to using ferries to get from one part of the city to another. In Belgrade, the 3 US servicemen captured 3 weeks ago on the Kosovo border have been allowed a brief visit from the head of the International Red Cross. The Red Cross chief also met President Milosevic, who told him that the Red Cross may now operate freely in Kosovo. Meanwhile, Yugoslavia's Deputy Prime Minister Vuk Draskovic has appeared to break ranks. Draskovic, who used to be an opposition leader, has said that President Milosevic's government is now ready to accept a UN peacekeeping force in Kosovo, a concession that still falls short of NATO's demands. Draskovic's statement may just be the first small crack in the dam of Serbian resistance, though the government here is still insisting that it will not negotiate until the bombing stops. Draskovic's remarks were made on a small local Belgrade television station, virtually the only TV available while the main channel was still off the air because of Friday's bombing. And that may give them a particular significance here in the capital. Some of the victims of NATO's attack on the TV headquarters have now been buried amid the grief of families and friends. Emergency workers are still searching for bodies amid the rubble, and it's feared that the final death toll could rise as high as 19. Julian Mannion, ITN, Belgrade.
Continuing NATO air campaign against Yugoslavia. We have more of the day's top stories still to come on the ITV Evening News, including, as the clear-up goes on, the hunt for the Brick Lane bomber. The windfalls in prospect as society votes to become a bank.